This is Influencing the Right Way. Our goal is to raise the standard of the fitness industry. We're out here trying to make people's lives as healthy and as happy as we possibly can. And the only way we're going to do that is if we take it as serious as a medical doctor does. Welcome to Influencing the Right Way with the Viking. And of course, I have with me
Sarah freaking Sloan.
What up, girl? How you doing?
Absolutely incredible.
You know what? Just for everybody listening out there, our fucking room right here is freezing. It's now even to where like I'm getting a little cold. So I know you are dying.
My feet might fall off any second.
They're just going to fucking fall off. Okay, so you're listening to Influencing the Right Way. We want to raise the standard of the fitness industry. Today's topic, we're going to talk about something very cool. You can apply in your personal and professional life. And if you found some value in it, share this with a homie. Give it to a friend that can also see that value from it. The reason is because I want you involved in our mission. I want you to be the person that raises the standard of the fitness industry. Woo. All right, so today we are talking about principles, policies, and practices.
3 Ps.
3 Ps. Let me ask you, Sarah, so what is the difference between a principle and a policy? Explain it to me.
Yes. Okay, so a principle is like a global or universal way of like thinking, and that's what you decide your actions based off of. Policies would be like very black and white. You do this or you don't do this.
Yep.
Show up 15 minutes early to work. Wear this dress code. It's a policy.
Got it.
Do or die.
So another way that I like to think about it is that internal versus external, right? The principle, like we were saying, it comes from in here. Like that's in your soul. You are a principled person.
Yeah.
A policy is a rule somebody else places. And so now, even as I'm saying it, it sounds like one's good, one's bad. Well, you can be a bad principled person. Like you can have bad principles. Or it can be a good policy that everybody follows.
Yeah.
But in the way that we talk about it, in the way that it has drastically changed my life, is to think about it like this, is that in all of your life, you are always going to come up against obstacles and problems forever. There's never going to be a day where you are not going to face problems. But if you base your life around simple principles, most problems in your life are reoccurring things. You always have a problem with this. I'll tell you from my own personal example, I have a bad principle of being organized, right? So what does that lead to? I can't find my ID. I don't know where my credit card is at.
You can't get on the flight back home.
I can't get on a flight back home. I don't have a passport. Now,
that's actually happened, by the way.
All of these are real things. So having a lack of the principle of organization, I now find myself with problems that those may seem small, but I get pulled over. I get a ticket. I don't have my license. I get 2 tickets. It now costs me twice as much. I have to go to a class. That time that I'm at the class, I'm not working with my team. Then I get another one. I'm looking at getting a lawyer. These things seem...
First-hand experience, it sounds like.
Yeah, because you see that rolled off the tongue pretty easy. The point is that these small problems accumulate over time, and I don't want to sound like a grumpy old man, but I am, is that for the person that you can imagine who just like could never get it together, they like are in their 40s and still have kind of a shit job and it'll be a different job next year. Most of the time, it's not that they're dumb and it's not that they are not good people. There's some principle of their life that they just never got figured out. And it may be that like simply why they still have a bad job in their mid 40s is because they had a problem with just like being able to commit to one thing, right? And saying like, this is the thing that I'm going to do and I'm going to sacrifice all these other things for it, right? It's like, that doesn't matter all the time. But if it's always a problem for you and you're always looking for the new and better thing, then you jump job to job and you never really get better at anything. And so then you're constantly in that rut of always starting over.
Yeah.
So That is how I really like to think of a principle. And it's helped me because I've realized that I have reoccurring problems. But if I can fix the principle, the deep down thing, the root cause, then all of those problems kind of start going away. So an example in work was I'm really good at putting together the big theory, right? I'm very principled in giving myself time to think about how do I make this speech? How do I talk about it? How do I communicate the information? I don't have the principle of details, right? So the detail would be, let's say I teach somebody all about, what they're supposed to do for the job, how they're supposed to do it, and why they do it. And I tell it all to them. But I don't go through the detail of doing it in front of them, right? Of like role playing it or getting on the phone and showing them what it is. So then that I did all that other work. And then that little detailed part, because it's missing, that person now can't do their job right.
Yeah.
And that makes the whole thing fall down. It's a big thing to think about, right?
Yeah.
But go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I actually want to talk about how if you are a trainer or anyone in business and you actually train people, whether that be through coaching or you're scaling your business and you want to teach other people how to do things, like this will absolutely change your life. Instead of thinking of policies that people need to abide by, think about the principles in which maybe you came up with those policies.
Yep.
And so this will literally change your life like crazy because then you don't have to be sitting over someone making sure they do all these policies.
Yep.
They'll be able to understand why they act a certain way within the organization. And then even if something random happens, they'll respond the right way how you would want them to because they understand like the nitty-gritty reason behind
the deep thing underneath it.
Yeah. And so like say, just an example, like in our retail stores, right? If we don't have a product, instead of saying when you don't have a product that someone's looking for, this is what you do, X, Y, Z. Instead, you say, hey, we go the extra mile for people every single time. And so they'll know that if any situation happens, at the end of the day, they just need to go the extra mile to make sure that person's getting taken care of.
Do that extra thing for them.
Every single time.
So what I like to imagine there is enacting a policy at a company that ends up hurting you, right? So imagine an airline, and they have a policy that if you are not there 30 minutes before the flight, then you can't get on the flight, right? It actually is a good policy to have. You got to make sure that people are there on time, right? Now, imagine there's somebody who their parent just died, and they are last minute trying to get to the airport so that way they can see their family there. If your company is driven by policy, then what's going to happen is that person's not going to get home to go see their family in a time of genuine emergency. And although that may be good for the overall, from a business perspective, you've definitely lost a customer. Like they will never come back and use
They'll
you
actively
again.
talk about how
terrible you are.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine being in that situation.
You don't just lose one customer.
You lose hundreds
Yeah.
because you stuck by a policy. As where if you taught the principle to like, hey, the customers have got to be here on time, but we are in the travel industry. And under dire situations, we make sure that our customers are taken care of, even at our own expense. Then what happens is people see you as that company and they want to do business with you because you're a principled organization, right? And you do what's right.
Policies lead to frustration most of the time.
Yeah. Like imagine being on the phone and you've probably actually heard somebody on the phone like, I'm sorry, that's not our policy. You can't return after that amount of time.
Yeah.
And it's like, you motherfucker, like you even hate that person, which you shouldn't, but you're on the phone, you're like, I fucking hate you. And you will go off and speak negatively about them. Now, when you teach your employees about the principle, they may not be able to return the product for the customer, but maybe they can do something else. And on the next shipment, they can add something else in.
Yeah.
Or they can allow for an expedited shipping for free. Whatever it is, to be able to work with that customer because that's what matters in the long run.
Exactly.
Okay, so then the last one to talk about with it is we have principles. We have its adversary, the policy. But then there's practices, right? So that practice would be underneath the policy, there's a handful of different things that you can teach that are actual actions of that principle being upheld at your organization.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't teach the principle underneath it,
Yes, and you just teach the practices.
then those can't even be upheld the right way. Why do you think that is? Why
Well, it's
couldn't
basically
Go ahead.
policy, right? The practice without a principle is just a...
I didn't think you were going to get this because we didn't talk about it before. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
A practice
Reverse
is
osmosis.
reverse osmosis. The practice of a principle without the principle is a policy.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's a lot of long winded around, but that's just teaching somebody the direct action, not teaching them the underlying reasoning why.
But a principle needs to have actions behind it, because you could think that this fluffy way of thinking, everyone just understands what it is, but without directly applying that to your organization and what that looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, you're just leaving a dog out with a leash, without a leash on,
So you got to have both. And that is, so at the beginning, asking about the difference between principle versus policy. The point is that actually policies work in tandem with principle. Mm-hmm. They just can be moved or changed a little bit about how they work when you teach about that underlying principle.
Yeah, you think about it, we still have 15 minutes early is on time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's a policy that I referenced earlier, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the reason why it's not a policy is because we have the principle above that of making sure that we're disciplined and we put others before ourselves.
Exactly.
And so if someone comes in, I've actually had this happen where there was an accident on the freeway. They took a picture. They couldn't get here, but they left early enough, and all this stuff and all this awful stuff was happening because it was a principle. And I know they were disciplined, and they reached out to me, and they were thinking of me first, making sure that, I wasn't waiting to start the meeting, all that stuff. It was okay.
Absolutely.
But say they showed up late and didn't have any.
Just oh, sorry, I was late.
That doesn't stick to the principle, and you could reprimand.
So, guys, this is one of those ones that takes a lot of large kind of to think about, right? But when you're teaching your team, using principles, not just policies, is going to help tremendously in the long-term growth. Mm-hmm. And we'll add something here at the end. We've said this a lot through these podcasts about thinking long-term and not short-term. Really, everything good in your life is when you start thinking long-term and not short-term. Mm-hmm. Think about even getting in shape, right? A Pop-Tart tastes good now, but chicken and broccoli feels good 5 years down the road.
Yeah.
Right? Your health, your fitness, your wealth, buying things that just make you feel good right now, that Louis Vuitton bag, is not going to set you up to have a wealthy, stable future.
Yeah.
Everything is about how much can I think about the future and not the short run. Policies... We were both there at the same time.
I know, the same thing. Go.
You go ahead and go.
I was going to say, so policies are very short-term thinking, right? They're so easy. I could just tell everyone, show up 15 minutes early.
Exactly.
If you don't, I'm going to write you up, and then 3, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Takes 5 seconds to explain that.
Yep.
That's it. Teaching someone the intricate details about a principle and a way of living and how that applies inside and outside and all these different practices that could fall within that category of the principle, that takes a very long time.
Very long time, but it stays.
Yes. And then you actually helped someone out. You didn't just tell them what to do.
Yep.
You build influence, not power.
There we go, baby. All right, that was influencing the right way. If you guys found some value in this, please share it with somebody else. I want you to be the person that raises the standard of the fitness industry.
Woo!
All right, I'll see you next time.